Hello YouTubers, it's Gianna. I started doing these earrings with the beautiful howlite and the epoxy flower. Has the end of the trail in the middle of it. So I figured I would go ahead and do the video for you guys to show you how I go around the sides of my stones and my epoxy focals. And I do hope you guys enjoy it. I will probably do a little chit chat while I'm beading and explaining to you what I'm doing. So here we go. I've already taken 2 wingspans of thread, and the thread that I use, it's a Nymo thread. Oops, get it in camera there. It is a Nymo thread, and it is D, size D thread. Most Native Americans, we do bead with the Nymo thread. And now here comes the hard part, threading the needle. And guess what? It looks like I got it the first time. Always happy when that happens. Okay, now I take my beeswax. Beeswax, we coat our thread with it to keep our thread from fraying, and not only just fraying. I was told many years ago, not only by my mother but by other elders, that when we use the wax on our thread, it protects the thread from aging throughout the years, and it keeps the beads on the beadwork. So what I'm doing now is I'm laying my thread from the bottom of the needle down on the beeswax, holding it with my thumb, and I'm pulling the thread through. Now that my thread is coated with the wax, I put my knot in the end. It's your preference how you want to place your knot before or after you do the waxing. And of course, as I've said in my very first video, I love to bead with size 11/0 beads. Okay, what I'm going to do is oh, excuse me. Oh, it's my allergies. I'm sorry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my needle up from the back, and I'm going to bring it up as close as I can between the focal and, or the, not just, they're both focals, between the stone and the epoxy. Okay, there we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up 2 of my amethyst colored beads and 1 aluminum metal colored beads. 2 amethyst colored beads, 1 aluminum color, 2 amethyst, 1 aluminum. Okay, once I've put a few on my needle, I bring it down, and I lay it around my stone so I can see what it looks like. So far it's going to look really nice. Pick up 2 and 1, 2 and 1. I don't know if I mentioned it in my very first video, but before the glass seed bead came along, we didn't use these beads. What we used were seeds, like seeds from a cedar tree If we saw a seed that was thick enough and soft enough, we could take our bone awl that we used from deer or buffalo, whatever we used, and we put the bead down with the sinew from from deer or buffalo, elk, whatever it was that we used. We utilized everything from the animal, of course, and it was our needle and thread. And later on, when the Europeans came, is when glass beads were introduced to us in trade. Since then, we've learned to bead with the different shapes and sizes of the glass beads that were introduced to us when the Europeans came. There's a lot of interesting facts and stories out there told by some of the elders that are still left in tribes. How our culture has struggled to survive. It's amazing how, some of our tribes have actually found a way to keep the young children interested in our native tongue, in our traditional ceremonies. And my family is one of them who still believes in teaching our native tongue and teaching our cultural ceremonies to our young. And we try not to be prideful people, because we find that pride, not only has it been taught in the Christian way, but we find that pride is a nasty value to have among our own peoples. Most native people are very giving. We will give the shirt off our back if we see that you need it. And I believe everybody should be that way in life. So what I'm doing now is, just like I came up from the back on the opposite side of the flower, I'm taking my needle down through the top and I'm pulling it through. And holding my thumb right on the stone so that way my beads can come out and lay around my stone properly. It's going to take a little bit of maneuvering here. I hope I put the right number around. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack down. That's what we call tacking down. I'm going to tack down, and when tacking down, I'm coming up close to the cabochon. And it'll be every 3 beads. So since I've laid 2 amethyst, 1 aluminum metal down, I will be able to see that pattern very, very well on the way through. I come up next to the cabochon, as you see, and then I'm going to take my needle down on the outside of my bead and pull the thread through. Repeat that all the way around. I do every 3 beads. Some people do every 2, some do every 5, but we all have our own way, and that's what's beautiful about each individual's beadwork, is our own way, and how sometimes the technique is the same. I'm trying to stay in frame for you, and I'm trying to keep the piece right side up so you can see what I'm doing. and I am pulling my thread up, pulling my thread down, one on the inside of the bead next to the cabochon, one on the outside of the bead up on the not nowhere close to the cabochon. There are many different techniques of tacking down our beads. Some use a 2-needle method, which I hope to be able to show you guys another time in another video. It's kind of hard for me to do, so it is not the reason why. It's not the one that I chose to show you first. This is the 1 needle. Okay, now I'm down here at the tip, and I want it to look very nice at the tip of my cabochon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up the back side of my cabochon like I did excuse me, my allergies, coming around this side, tacking it down. I'm going to come up like I normally do, bring my needle up, and I'm going to come back down. But since this is the tip of the stone, I want the bead to look really nice down at the tip of the stone. And then I'm coming up on the other side of the bead, the aluminum bead, and then I'm bringing it back down. And what that does is it keeps the point and it lays nice and snug against that point. Because if you notice, sometimes when you get like a pointy stone or whatever in any kind of work, and if the work is not snug around that pointy, things tend to come apart. And now I will continue around. I do have my bead tweezer here, but as long as my fingers are working, I'm still going to use my fingertips while I'm laying down the beads. After I'm done getting this laid down, I'll show you the back, what it looks like. Okay. I'm going to come back up through the back here, go back through, then I'm going to pick up one of my aluminum beads. I notice that I still have room, and I did it the same way with the other other side, the other part of the earring. And I'm going to pull it down the best I can here. Okay, see? Then I'm going to come up the back side of that aluminum bead next to the stone. Pulling tight so that way the bead will lay down in there, and tack it down as well. Coming up on the other side, see the space there? You try not to show too much space with your beadwork. Now this side is done just a little bit different. I will go through those 3 beads, the 2 amethyst, and then out the aluminum side. Pulling. Going down next to the cabochon, pulling through. And then, yes, coming up from the back side next to the cabochon and tacking that bead down as well. Okay. Now these 2 sides look identical from the bottom. I'm going to do a different technique on the top, a different way of laying the beads around the focal point. And as you see, my thread is right there. See how it looks in the back. Back it off just a little. See how it looks in the back there. And it goes the shape of the cabochon. Okay, and now I'm coming up from the back next to my focal again, and this time I'm going to do 2 and 2. I'm doing 2 amethyst, 2 aluminum, 2 amethyst, 2 aluminum. Okay, I got ahead of myself there. I told you I was going to show you something different. I almost went on with the same technique. It's a good thing that I do mess up on the video, because then it teaches me to pay attention. I'm still new at it, and you all, you're all wonderful people. Thank you for encouraging me to do this. Okay, what I'm doing now is I picked up 4 beads. Like I said, I picked up 2 amethyst and 2 aluminum. What I'm going to do now with my thumb is hold down those 4 beads, and right in front of my aluminum bead, I'm going to take my thread down through the back. Alright, it's laying down, and look, it's quite loose yet. So what I do is I come up right next to my focal piece, in between the purple and the amethyst and the amethyst color bead and the aluminum metal bead, and then I go through the 2 aluminum metal beads, pulling the thread in the direction that I'm beading. And that's also a really good tip to anybody who's out there learning how to bead. When you're doing embroidery thread or anything, Never pull your thread to the side. Don't pull it to the side like that or this way. Pull it in the direction that you are beading. And the reason why you do that is keeps your beads straight and your work is a little more snug. Picking up 2 amethyst, 2 aluminum again. And I'm doing the same thing right in front of my bead. I'm taking the needle down through the back, from the top to the back, and then I will be coming up alongside of my focal, the inside of my beads, and then through the 2 aluminum metal beads, and again pulling my thread in the direction of my beads. See? Again, 2 amethyst, 2 aluminum. Now you guys can see why it takes me 6 hours to actually make a pair. A lot of it has to do with my RA. The younger generation, they can really whip these out within 2 to 3 hours, but it takes me a while to actually get this done. Okay, coming through from the back and then back up through. And pulling in the direction that my beads are laying. This time I am only picking up 3 beads. I've picked up 2 of the amethyst and 1 aluminum bead. And with this one, it is going to lay out to the side. And I am going to go back down through the front of my bead. Going back down through the front of my bead. And once I do that, and instead of doing it the way that I was doing all the way around, I am going to come back up in between the 2 amethyst beads, and I will be tacking down in between the amethyst beads, like I did with the stone down here. This is what we call detailing our focal. We are detailing our focal. And it's beautiful when you can detail the focal. And like on this side, you can see that there's a little space right there. We will take care of that. I've not done a woodland flower for a long time. So now what I'm going to do, since I've come out through the back, I'm going to come up right at the tip of that flower right there, see? Because it'll be right in between the aluminum flower, or the aluminum bead, when I do that. Meaning, now I am going to take the black around the edge of the top. And with this one, yes, I'm picking up 4 beads again. And I will be tacking it down. Oh, there's a cat hair. I may be having to pull out my beading tweezers here pretty soon. My hands are starting to feel it. And then just like I did along this side and around the, come up next to the cab, and oh gosh, okay, and I go back through 2 beads. And yes, you pull in the direction that your beads are laying. You don't want your beads laying all crooked or wonky or anything, so that's the reason why we do pulling in the direction of our beads. Okay, as you can see, I've got the little dip there. I've got 4 beads. And I lay it like that. And I come down in front of my bead again. I know this is my first time doing this, so I hope you're all patient and understanding. So what I do with that part there, as you can see, so you can see that little bit of white right there. This bead will be pulled down in there as I tack it down. So I come up next to the cab, the cabochon as we call it. And just like when I tacked the corner down here, I'm going to pull my bead down in that area with my needle. See how I pulled it down in there? And then I'm going to take my needle on that side of the bead, there, and pull it through. Now it is laying perfectly fine. There's no white spot to be seen. Then I'm coming up along the opposite side of that bead that I just tacked down in the empty space there. Next to the focal point. Excuse me. And I'm going through the 2 beads. And I'm pulling in the direction that my beads are laying. I will do this all the way over to the other side of flower, and then I will pick up with the amethyst and the aluminum color bead again. I know at the beginning of the video I said I did a wingspan of thread. A wingspan is from basically fingertip to fingertip. Like a bird when they do their wings outward. You know, that's a wingspan on both sides like that. And it looks like I'm going to have to grab 5 beads with this one. I don't like doing that, but sometimes it happens. Because not all the beads, not all the pieces are cut the same way on each side. I'm talking about the epoxy cab. So I have to maneuver my beads and try to get them to lay nicely around the cabs. And then as you can see right here the little white that's in between the little divots. So again, the back of my thread, I'm going to have to bring it up next to the cabochon, the needle, pull that bead down in there so it lays in that little divot perfect and nice. It's kind of hard to get it to do it sometimes unless you force it from the top. And I did it, I believe. And yes, again, I come up along the other side and I'm going to tack it down because I had to put 5 beads on this one, on this side of the flower. I'll be able to tack it down like I did the tip down here. I think my hands are mostly in the way. I'll get used to doing the videos along the way, I hope. Okay, now that I've got it tacked down in that space, I will, right next to the epoxy cab there, the focal, whatever we want to call it, right? I will take my thread through the last 2 black beads and pull it through. And yes, remember, pull in the direction of your beadwork. I think I know what I'm going to do on these tips. I'm going to put the yellow, the actual yellow bead. And this one's called Dandelion Yellow. Now that I've done that, I got to take my thread back down the front of that bead and pull it through the back. Bring my needle up next to the cab along the side here. And do as I did along this side. I will pick up the 1 aluminum, 2 of these, because that's how it is laying on this side. I will lay opposite I don't know if you want to call this a tutorial or just an explanation. Whatever it is, right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching. And I will pull that down through the 2 amethyst beads. Excuse me again. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the weather here is kind of crazy, and we get wind, then we get rain, we get wind, then we get rain. And since I live in what we call mountain desert area, it dries out quick, and the beautiful rain just gets soaked up by Mother Earth, and we end up with humidity sometimes, or sometimes just pure dryness. And today my allergies are up. Okay, now I'm going to go with my 2 colors, back and forth, but picking them up 4 at a time and tacking them down. Some people have told me that I bead strange, but I believe that beading is everybody's joy, and your technique is always your own. I was taught to bead by my mother at a very young age, and I couldn't understand why my mother put down the beads until I started feeling it, but I am not going to let RA beat me. But she did continue to crochet, knit, embroider, but she didn't do the beadwork anymore. And it's something that she felt that she couldn't keep up with anymore. And I'm just very glad that, she took the time to teach me how to bead, the different styles, the different techniques, before she gave it up. And if you're wondering what I'm beading on, or what I'm using as a mat, my mat is actually one of those things that you can dry your dishes on. And I cut them in half and I make them my beading mats. Some people don't realize that these things can also be used in other ways than just drying your dishes. And I do enjoy it. Okay, since I'm at the end here, what I'm going to do is come up between the aluminum beads, and my amethyst beads. And this is how I'm finishing this edge. And just like I did with around here, around the Howlite cabochon here, I am going to take it on the outside of the beads, tack it down, and pull it nice and snug. And there you go. I have outlined my howlite stone and my epoxy focal. I hope you enjoyed the video of my outline. I will finish these earrings and hopefully do something fun with them with you all. Okay, this is Gianna from her little YouTube channel. Thank you for watching, and I love you all. God bless you. And I pray that you all are healthy and happy people.